Monday, October 28th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So, is there a bank that's more powerful than the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England? In my opinion, there is, and I'm going to talk about this bank today briefly. You might not have heard of it. Some of you might have heard of it. It's called the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS. It's located within Switzerland, but it's not in Switzerland, technically. It's like the Vatican. It's like Washington, D.C. It's like the City of London. It's an autonomous institution. And yes, it has diplomatic immunity anywhere in the world. Its officers do. They carry diplomatic passports. They're a secret bank. They are the central banker's bank. And I'll talk a little bit about that because I think that needs to be looked at. BIS markets itself as an international regulator, right? They have the FSB, Financial Stability Board, but it's a very different bank. It's very powerful, and I'm going to recommend a book for you guys because it's really important that you know about this bank and that something is done about it. How can it be abolished or ended like the Fed? Well, only through an international treaty, and I'll go through that in a minute. So here's the bank, the shadowy history of the secret bank that runs the world. Tower of Basel, Basel, Switzerland. Adam Libor, there you go. Highly recommend that. You can probably find it anywhere, Amazon and elsewhere. It won't be too expensive. Maybe it will, I don't know. But I bought this used, this book. So let's go through the inside jacket here, see what they say quickly. It says the Tower of Basel is the first investigative history of the world's most secretive global financial institution. Yeah, and the FSB is really important because they're the people who regulate the too big to fail banks, right? A few years ago, HSBC, they were not criminally indicted because the FSB told the DOJ, the FSB in Basel told the DOJ in the US not to prosecute them. So that's how much power they have. The other story I'll tell you briefly just before I go back to reading about the book here is that a few years ago when I sold my previous house, one of the viewers who came to view the house worked for the Bank of England. He said, I work for the Bank of England, but I've come back from Switzerland. And straight away I said, well, were you working at the BIS? He said, yes. How do you know? I said, well, you guys work together, don't you? And he said, yes, I was seconded to the bank, to the BIS. So basically, if you look at the BIS on Wikipedia, it says it has, I don't know, 600 employees or something. But these employees are, they're not real. Some of them might be directly employed by the BIS in Basel, but a lot of them are there working from other central banks. They work there, they do a stint there for a few years and then they go back to their home central bank. So that's how it works. He didn't buy my house, by the way, because we couldn't, the other house we wanted to buy, the sellers, their deal fell through. So we couldn't, he couldn't buy our house because he needed it right away. Anyway, it goes on to say, based on extensive archival research in Switzerland, Britain, and the United States, and in-depth interviews with key decision makers, including Paul Volcker, the former chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Sir Mervyn King, former governor of the Bank of England, and former senior bank for international settlements managers and officials, Tower of Basel tells the inside story of the Bank for International Settlements, the central banker's own bank, created by the governors of the Bank of England and the Reichsbank in 1930. And you have to remember that back then these banks were privately owned, at least the Bank of England, right? It was only nationalized 16 years later. and protected by an international treaty. The BIS and its assets are legally beyond the reach of any government or jurisdiction. Even the Swiss can't step foot into the BIS in Basel. The other thing about the BIS, they're very low key. Yes, they do have a tower now, their head office in Basel. And I have to say it's quite conspicuous because Basel is not a big city in Switzerland. But prior to having that tower, they operated out of a hotel, above a hotel in Basel. So let's continue. The bank is untouchable. Swiss authorities have no jurisdiction over the bank or its premises. The BIS has just 140 customers, but made tax-free profits of $1.17 billion in 2011-2012. Yeah, that's the other thing about these international institutions like BIS, IMF, World Bank. All the people that work in them pay no tax, or the institution pays no tax. That's really convenient, isn't it? While we here in the real world have to. Since its creation, the bank has been at the heart of global events, but has often gone unnoticed. There you go. They're behind the scenes. Under Thomas McKittrick, the bank's American president from 1940 to 1946, the BIS was open for business throughout the Second World War. The BIS accepted looted Nazi gold, conducted foreign exchange deals for the Reichsbank. Yes, that's during World War II. And was used for both Allies and the Axis powers as a secret contact point to keep the channels of international finance open. So there you go. That's why all these crises or all these wars, they're all bankers' wars, right? I'm not trying to disrespect people who died in war, but I'm sorry to say, this book clearly shows that it doesn't matter. They're still doing business. The warring factions. I would have thought that during World War II there was no business going on between the warring factions, but that was before I read this book. After 1945, the BIS, still behind the scenes for decades, provided the necessary technical and administrative support for the Trans-European Currency Project, Euro. From the first attempts to harmonize exchange rates in the late 40s to launch the euro in 2002, it now stands at the center of efforts to build a new global financial and regulatory architecture, once proving that it has the power to shape the financial rules of our world. Yet, despite its pivotal role in the financial and political history of the last century and during the current economic crisis, the BIS has remained largely unknown until now. There was, after the war, I think it was during the Bretton Woods conference, I think it was the Norwegian delegation, they wanted to close down this bank because they knew about this, right, that they were funding both sides. And McKittrick, by the way, he didn't work for the Fed. He wasn't from the Fed. He was from J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan had their man at the BIS, right, during World War II. So there you go, J.P. Morgan, dealing with the enemy. Nothing happened to J.P. Morgan, of course. But the British delegation under John Maynard Keynes objected to that. So they've kept the BIS alive, right? So that's the kind of institution it is. There's a great chapter as well about how the BIS helped the Nazis loot European gold and transfer like Czechoslovak gold from the BIS account to the German account. It's amazing. I really recommend this book. The heads of all the major central banks, Jay Powell included, they travel to Basel, Switzerland 6 times a year. So they have a big meeting every 2 months. And when he's there, he's on a diplomatic passport, would you believe it? So it's the totally secret organization. I know their website published a lot of stuff, but not the important stuff. So that's the other bank we need to keep an eye on. BIS, recommend this book. So now let's get to the markets this morning. It's 7:43 a.m. London. We're only 4 hours ahead right now of the US Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, whatever it is, because our clocks went back and yours haven't. I don't know how long that's going to be for, maybe a week or so, I don't know. But right now, spot gold is up $3, 1507.30. Range has been 1502 to 1508. Yes, Friday was a bit disappointing. We'd seen gold and silver rally strongly and then come off towards the end of the day. I still think it looks pretty good, the technical picture, though. Need to be patient. Silver recovering this morning. We're back to outperforming gold. We're up 0.5% here at 18.10, up about 8 cents. Range has been 17.98 to 18.14. Stock market still strong, and everyone's expecting, of course, a rate cut on Wednesday by the Fed. Amazing that we are near all-time highs or thereabouts, and the Federal Reserve is having to cut rates, and the economy is doing great. We have low unemployment, right? Amazing. The thing is, we have a lot of debt in the world, and Uncle Sam is racking up huge deficits every year, and they can't keep, they can't let rates go up too far, right? So S&P is up just under 5 points at 3,026, up 0.2%. NASDAQ 100 futures up 0.25 at 8,044. Currencies are pretty steady, not much change over the weekend here or overnight. So cable is 128.24. Euro is at 110.88. Dollar is at 108.71 against the yen. The dollar is a little stronger against the Chinese yuan. It's up 0.1% at 705.85. WTI crude down a third at 56.40. Brent down 0.2 at 61.52. Bond markets, yeah, yields are have backed up in the last week or so. We're at 181 in the 10-year yield, and the 2 years at 163.5. So there you go. BIS, Bank for International Settlements, shadowy institution, I would say, and they market themselves as being just a regulator, but they are more than that. I think they're important because they allow central bankers like from England, the US, the ECB, Japan, to meet secretly and do things behind the backs of national legislatures, so to speak, right? So they run the world, like Adam Libor says. They run, because we know that he who controls the money supply doesn't care who makes the laws, and this bank epitomizes that saying by Mayer Amschel Rothschild. And I wouldn't even put it past the Rothschilds to have been behind the creation of this bank. You would have thought once everything was settled with Germany after World War II, they could close this down. No, but they never let an institution like this go to waste. It was a master stroke, I think, by the international bankers to have this bank created by international treaty and be completely, how can I say, independent of any other country or jurisdiction, right? So yeah, I think Adam Libor is right. They're running the world, the BIS. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Make sure you hit the little notification bell above to be notified of all my new videos. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.